So, Nazar is a Belgian-born Angolan producer. His work uses a reimagining of kuduro, a genre of music from Angola, born in the 80s, and it usually has quite an up-tempo, energetic, and danceable feel. However, Nazar's reinterpretation of kuduro is more reflective of the darker history of Angola's 27-year-long war. And his Enclave EP was released in 2018 and uses this kind of rough kuduro throughout. So thank you, Nazar, for joining us tonight. I thought it was going to be a little So I thought it'd be nice to just start kind of at the beginning, in a sense. And so what are your earliest memories of music?
First of all, thanks for having me here. I think it's going to be a good opportunity for me just to show more the layers of how I make music and why I make those songs. The first memory of music, I think, normally, logically, it's going to be like childhood. I come from a very lively family. I've got loads of sisters and a brother, and I would remember like on weekends when we would just do the cleaning of the whole house, we would just put like kuduro and songs from Angola. So even though I was born in Brussels in 1993, those days were like the day where I would kind of form a bond with back home, which is Angola, even though without even having stepped a foot there before. So when I moved there when I was 14, I kind of had like the ground set already, and it wasn't a natural, it was a very harsh transition, but I still had something I could hold onto, which was music, basically.
Brilliant. And how did you move into music production? And what was that journey like?
It was a very rough journey, yeah. At the time when I was 14, I wanted to move to Angola without even having visited the place. It was in a moment in my life where I was in that kind of limbo where I was trying to find my identity of who I was. And growing up as a minority in Belgium, you always subject to loads of silent aggressions, I guess, about the fact of your race, and you're never going to be like truly Belgian and stuff. So it was at a time that when I moved to high school, when I passed to high school, and I've lost pretty much like all of my close friends, childhood friends, because they all moved to other places and they went to other schools. So that's why I started to become isolated and start wondering about my home. The country of my parents and how it would be there. And at the time, I remember that the war had ended in 2002. So it was already like 5 years after the war, the peace, the real peace, I guess. And I saw it as an opportunity to just do the move, just to search for myself, and that would be a good opportunity to have the whole family reunited and to know more about my dad that I only knew through TV, journals and TV news shows, and sometimes he would visit us, but it would be very random visits and very quick.
I think I can relate to that notion of growing up in the diaspora, but having a concept of home being elsewhere that was kind of alive for you through music. When you moved to Angola, what was that like? I imagine for me, if I moved to Zimbabwe, I don't think I'd fit in straight away, especially as a teenager. Like, what was that moment like? Was it an amazing homecoming? Was it a challenging transition?
Yeah, it was a very rough transition. Straight away, I felt that I wasn't. It depends. At school, I kind of felt that I was welcomed by the peers and stuff, my classmates. Like they were all like, "Oh, yeah, this guy's coming from Europe and know so much stuff and stuff. But another way, because of my political affiliation and the place I was, which was I was in a private school, but my parents they wanted me to. Sorry, my parents wanted me to go on a school, a Portuguese-speaking school, so I could be integrated as soon as possible. But that school was a elite school where loads of kids from the regimes were there, so I was like minority there again. And quickly I found out that, even though I was just by the teachers, that my presence like was felt, and sometimes it would bother some of the teachers, where I would get into debate. I mean, that's where I started to have this kind of how can I say? I mean, yeah, I was down for debate and just to express my ideas, even though I was in minority. That's why I started to like this and just to speak my mind no matter where I am. And yeah, it was quite rough, but with time I just got along better. And also it's so funny because when I was in Angola, the political climate and all the propaganda and all the speech was quite extreme. But as soon as with time and more ideas of democracy got into people's mind, I was, before leaving Angola, was like very looked after for advices and commentaries about everything going on in Angola. And, yeah, so it was nice, but that was that shock was the thing that pushed me to try to find another refuge, which was making music. My dad had a laptop and would just like download a cracked version of FL Studio, and I would have to, because it was a demo version, I would have to finish the track every time I would start a project. But that kind of challenge got me into making 100 tracks in 100 days, and yeah, that's the thing that got me there. And also, sorry, I went to Tromsø last week, so that's what I'm just. Also, the difference in culture, like Angola is a very musical country. I mean, in many countries in Africa, and the fact that when I got there, you're just surrounded by sounds everywhere, like on minibuses, in the classroom, people just doing batidas with their hands. That's the thing that got me very motivated and interested to try to make also those beats. So while I had a very Eurocentric view about what's good music, right, and I thought, oh yeah, I mean, I'm never gonna find something better than, I don't know, Daft Punk or like the French Touch and all of this. But when I went to Angola, I got my mind blew straight away. And that's the thing that got me like, yeah, well, I have to make something like this, and the world has to know about how amazing kuduro is and the stars.
I just have a question around language though. So if you grew up in Belgium, so you speak French, and did you also learn the language from Angola, and then did you also have to learn Portuguese? Like, I'm wondering how many things you're having to...
Basically, I was born in Brussels, so it's like all the languages were there, Flemish and French and sometimes German, but I had Flemish at school, but I forgot about it quickly because... but then at home, I mean, I would speak French like at school and everywhere, but at home we would always speak Portuguese. That was the rule, just to keep the bond there with the motherland. And yeah, so when I moved to Angola, I had another shock, which was the fact that I thought that I could speak Portuguese properly, but it was like pretty awful. But it was a big shock that I kind of got bullied for like a year and a half, but as soon as I got like the swagger and the accent, the Angolan accent and stuff, that's when I got there. And then while I was making music, I knew beforehand that my sound, I mean, I had like a kind of ambitions about broadcasting my work everywhere in the world, so I knew that I had to pick on English as soon as possible. So yeah, I started to just watch loads of movies and trying to learn English as fast as we can. So.
And so you moved to the UK relatively And so, again, that's a very big move. I wonder what that transition was like for you.
It was merely a practical reason. I had moved here before in 2014, and I was just trying to get into uni just to follow architecture because I love architecture. But unfortunately, the qualifications that I had were recognized by the Commonwealth because it's Angola, it's quite a messy country in terms of affairs and stuff. So I had to go back to Angola. I enrolled into university in an architecture school, but then I dropped out because while I was in Angola, I felt straight away that my music was getting kind of noticed. People on Sarkar would message me, people like DJ Arab, she would just message me 3 years ago that, oh yeah, your stuff is amazing, that we should exchange stuff. So that's when I kind of realized that, oh, maybe I should go back and just focus on the music thing, get a job, and in the meantime trying to make tracks to anyone there. And that's the thing, I moved there, I moved to Manchester. I moved to London, but I stayed in London. I could survive in London just for 3 weeks because it's just expensive, and yeah, I had to re-plan. And going back to Manchester, which is a less expensive place, I could think properly and plan accordingly. And that's the thing I did. I just messaged them. I just emailed Klein because someone told me that he's very nice and he replies to emails. So he replied to my email with demos after 2 weeks. I was like, wow. Normally they never reply. But he didn't like he liked the stuff, but he told me that it's not the thing that he's looking for. But he introduced me to Shannon SP, and yeah, that's when I started just to got invited to a radio show, and then I did the monthly zero night of Hyper Club night, and that's when I knew that I had the opportunity to just go hard, and I played my most wildest track that I had. I was waiting for that moment. I've been making music for 10 years, or more than 10 years already, and on the 9th year, that's when I got to meet Klein and to play for him, so that's why I just did a good job, I guess. I signed to them.
So whilst you're known for the Angolan sound of kuduro in your music, or a version of it, that you've kind of evolved, what Belgian or UK influences might we also hear in your musical style?
Yes, the Belgian one might maybe Gabba, and some of the techno, but I've grown up in Belgium and being connected so culturally to France, I was very into French touch. So artists like Justice and Sébastien and Daft Punk, they shaped the way I treated the synth aspect, the melodic aspect of my tracks. And by the way, my name Nazar, I know that's a thing, many people think that I'm from another origin just because of my name, or even on Uber, the Uber driver thinks that I'm Muslim, or but the name is quite personal because I kind of cherish loads of things connected to personal story instead of caring too much about how it looks or whatever. But Justice was because Nazar was because my favorite track was from Justice, Word of Nazareth. So I took that name, and that track is very distinct in terms of a signature sound with the distortion. So that's why it's connected to my roots, I guess. So while I was in Angola, the thing I was trying to do was, I wasn't making kuduro first. I was just trying to have a link with Europe by making French touch and electronic music. And slowly, as I got more comfortable with the idea, and yeah, I was feeling more comfortable into being in Angola, my sound was slowly shifting into something more African and kuduro. So it was a nice transition.
And what was the reception to your Enclave EP back in Angola? What did they think of your style of kuduro?
Currently, it's very niche because I know straight away that my sound is very experimental, it's underground. So in Africa and in Angola, there's not a very big scene for this type of sound. But right now, I've been in contact. I'll sometimes get a message from people in Angola about my sound, but I can't compare in terms of audience that I have here. But yeah, and it's also like people that are quite connected to the diaspora. So yeah, but at the end of the day, with my music, I'm not trying to be accepted by any country or just like to be generally. I just care more about the individually. Any type of person can like my music, and any tribes and everywhere in the world. So it has to be like if it's in Angola, that's fine. If it's here, and even here, like I know that I'm never going to be on top 40 or whatever, but I just focus on the people that like my stuff, and that's the thing. I'm trying to make those people dance in the club.
And through your music, have you seen a rise in interest or awareness of the civil war in Angola? I mean, I was quite shocked when I did some research into it. It lasted from 1975 until 2002, which is a whole 27 years. The only other like African war I could think of was probably like Ethiopia, Eritrea. There's like a very protracted war, but I feel like Angola's not really in the kind of zeitgeist of our thinking. And so I wonder, has your music drawn any attention? Is that the purpose in what you're doing?
It drew some attention, and especially every time someone comes up to me and promotes and tells me that, oh, thanks to your music, I could just research more about you, about the whole conflict, and it's just so crazy of how it's now out there, the information. And yeah, I mean, when I start hearing about all these stories, and when I'm moving back to Angola, moving to Angola, the first thing that I did, and the way to connect with people, was just to listen. My family, and we would gather around every weekends, you know, like those family dinners and stuff, and everybody will talk about their war stories and going to refugees camps and all of this. So as I was traveling around the country to also meet the whole family, cousins, I would just get that sense that, wow, this is amazing, and it has to be written somewhere on a paper or on a book. So I have these kind of bigger ambitions or goals of trying to put this, like I'm trying to make a movie out of this or documentaries, but right now the most practical thing is just music. And my father, for example, he has written a book about the last 3 years in the war, what it was like on the last trenches. I mean, the last convoy of men connected to the leader, and he was there when the leader got killed, of the rebellion got killed, and he wrote about this extensively in details in his war diary style book. And with all this information, I kind of felt that I could be pushed further. And for me, I guess, and because in Africa we have this tradition of oral passage of stories and lessons, I just try to modernize the whole thing and make it a more modern sound, which is just a music of kuduro that probably in future generations they could access that information just through sounds in a more abstract way, but it's still there, it's just connected with hyperlinks, I guess. Yeah.
And in what ways do you think trauma from the war might be embedded within your music?
That's the thing. I mean, me and my sister, my older sister, my younger sister, we're the only two members of the family that hasn't been subjected to, exposed to trauma and to the war, because we were in Rwanda, in Belgium while this was happening. But my other sister, they all went there. The one in the middle, she was actually born in the general quarter of the rebellion, so she has seen things, and I kind of just try to talk to her a lot, and she explains to me and gives me all those details. But knowing that I haven't been exposed to the trauma, I never try to never try to take the first person while talking about those stories. I'm just more of a narrator of these stories, and I just try to reinterpret what she tells me into sounds like harsh noise, and try to make it ambient, with ambient sensibilities and stuff. So that's just the way I do it. I don't think that it has like the goal is not to be like to have a healing end to it, but it's true that I've got a couple of tracks that are very ambient-like, and sometimes when I try to do a homage to a person that I care about and their story, I will make the song sound in the way that that person deserves. So I got a track. I mean, for my forthcoming album, I have a couple of tracks that I involve the whole family. Like my father starts the album talking in traditional language, in our languages, which is one of the main languages that Angola has and always have before the Portuguese came. But I wanted to be in Umvondo because just to make the statement that I don't have to translate my language for anyone to understand. They have to go after that info. And he starts speaking about the story of how he sacrificed himself to divert, to make a diversion, to create a diversion, because they were being followed by the regime's forces, and they were about to catch the leader, Jonas Savimbi. But he asked him if he wanted to just create another line of men, so they would have to choose. So my dad straight away accepted, because my dad is has very deep has a very convictions, about his stuff, and he was willing to sacrifice himself. So he took a couple of men, and they start tracing a new trail into the jungle. And the moment they did this, loads of artillery and gunshots went to my dad. My dad has loads of some couple of bullets, and when a bomb drops and it just splatters or whatever. So he has all these marks on his face, and and that's why he's talking about the first track of the album, and then there's other stuff even involved my mother, and because I wanted to make sure that women are also talked about in this story, because they play a huge role, and probably the most important role. And my mother, when she was 17, she decided to. That was before the Civil War. It was for the Independence War. Even my dad, they all started fighting for the independence, but then things got ugly quickly because no one respected the treaty. The Portuguese were connected to the communist regime in Angola, so they just gave them the means just to try to eliminate the other movements after the independence was signed. So that's why the war started. But my mother, when she was 17, she decided to leave her parents and to go to one of the fighting movements, which was UNITA, the one of my mother in my family, and I got her talking into a track, and she talks about it, but because my mother suffered a lot during the war, I wanted the track also to be very peaceful and ambient-like. That's the kind of homage I wanted to be for her, and it's also going to be on my my forthcoming album. It got involvement of my sisters as well, because one of my sisters is a singer, and I used a couple of her voices. I also, on this last trip to Angola for holidays, I worked with a choir, and a percussionist, drummers from the birthplace of my dad, and which is a place that's quite neglected and very. It's kind of seen as a place where people assume that there's no bright people, but the brightest generals of the war in that side came from that area. So I wanted the place to sound very regional without being tribalistic, I guess. But yeah, I mean, do you guys want to hear it or you want it? So yeah, I hope it's fun to try.
Kakuye pandu vali ne pandu, wapita kolupango tote luminoke. Etekelia jo alendalane konjo, yakota yange ana. Expo pasuka akambabetu beya, okulaleka akuli.
Cheers. To cry because I get very emotional with. I was crying when I made that track. So loads of tracks from the album got like a very personal connection. So yeah, I think I'll pass the challenge.
We're done with no more questions. Okay. Damn it.
So I guess like if you want to hear, more of it, but a more aggressive part of the sounds, just come down about an hour. And, yeah, I'll give it whole, and I'm gonna play many tracks on the album, but the most danceable ones. And thanks for listening.